the midnight caller. The first time it happened, I didn't think much of it. The clock struck midnight, and my phone vibrated softly on my nightstand. I assumed it was a wrong number, a simple mistake, so I ignored it. But when the calls kept coming, always at the exact same time, midnight, I started to feel uneasy. For the first few nights, I let it go. No voicemail, no messages, just silence on the other end. But as the nights bled into one another, the calls became something more, something that crawled under my skin and lingered in the back of my mind. Every night, like clockwork, the phone would ring, and every night I'd answer, only to be met with the same eerie silence, like someone was there, listening, watching. Weeks passed, and the calls didn't stop. If anything, they became more frequent, more insistent. My sleep became restless, my nights long and filled with dread. The anticipation of the call gnawed at me, and soon enough, I was no longer just waiting for it, I was fearing it. Who was on the other end? Why wouldn't they speak? One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I was already sleep-deprived, on edge, and just when I thought I could rest, the phone rang again. Midnight, right on time. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, I answered, bracing myself for the usual silence. But this time it was different. A woman's voice, a soft, almost seductive whisper drifted through the static. "Come find me," she said, her tone a mix of urgency and something darker. Something wrong. My chest tightened, fear prickling at my skin. "Who are you?" I whispered, but she was already gone, the line dead. That voice haunted me. For days I replayed it over and over in my head, trying to rationalize it, but nothing made sense. Every night after, the calls continued. Sometimes she'd speak, other times it was just the heavy, suffocating silence. But one thing was clear, she was waiting for me. And as the days passed, my curiosity, twisted with fear, grew unbearable. I had to know. I had to face it. On a cold, moonless night, I made my decision. I would answer her summons. With shaking hands, I waited for the call, and when midnight came, I heard her voice again, whispering instructions that felt more like a curse. "Come, you know where." I didn't know how, but I did. I felt it deep in my bones, a pull, a compulsion that led me outside, into the freezing night. The streets were silent, bathed in a thick, oppressive fog. There was no one out, no cars, no life, just me, and the voice that echoed in my head. I followed her call, each step feeling heavier than the last, the weight of dread growing with every moment. The streets grew darker, the fog thicker, and soon I found myself standing at the edge of a deserted intersection, bathed in the flickering light of a lone street lamp. And there she was, a shadowy figure standing just beneath the light, her face obscured by darkness, her presence unnervingly still. "Why have you come?" Her voice was soft, like a lullaby, but laced with something sinister. I couldn't answer. My throat felt tight, my mind racing with 1,000 questions. Who was she? What did she want from me? She stepped closer, her features coming into focus under the flickering light. Her eyes, empty, void of life, locked onto mine. "I've been waiting for you," she whispered, her smile curling unnaturally across her pale face. "You were chosen." I tried to step back, but my feet wouldn't move. I was frozen in place, her words wrapping around me like chains, pulling me closer to something I didn't understand. Chosen for what? I finally managed to croak. Her smile widened, and in that moment, I saw something in her eyes, something dark, something unearthly. "To see the truth," she whispered, "to see how fragile your reality really is." Suddenly, the world around me twisted, bending and warping in ways that defied logic. The buildings, the streets, even the sky seemed to ripple, like a reflection in a shattered mirror. My vision blurred, and I felt the ground shift beneath me, as though I were falling into a bottomless pit. Panic surged through me as the woman's form distorted, stretching and contorting into something monstrous. Her once human face twisted into a grotesque mask of horror, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "You can't run," she said, her voice now a growl that echoed through the air. "You belong to me now." I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My body felt like it was being pulled apart, piece by piece, reality unraveling around me. The street lamp flickered and died, plunging everything into darkness. And then I saw it, a glimpse of something far worse than any nightmare. A realm of endless shadows, where twisted figures writhed and whispered, their voices merging with the woman's. I was being drawn into their world, their reality, where there was no escape, no light, only endless torment. The last thing I saw before the darkness consumed me was her face, grinning in the black void, her voice still whispering in my ears. "You were always mine." The phone calls never stopped. They still come every night, but now I know. I'm not just the one receiving them. I'm part of them. I'm trapped in the caller's nightmare, and I can never wake up.